reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
Hello, and welcome to the American Veteran. I'm Dale Parrish, your host. Our co-host is Carl Fowler. Also sitting in with us today is Jason Smith, who's a member of the DAV. Our guest today is Jeremy Rockstroy.
Got it right.
Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You served in Iraq.
Yes.
Pretty early part of the war, I believe.
Very, very start of the war. Actually hit the ground 2-3 days into the ground war. So we actually hit Iraq. Actually hit the Middle East. Hit Kuwait January 2nd of 2003 in the build-up. And actually our mission started as providing security for Camp Arifjan, Kuwait, which is now the main camp in Kuwait for logistics. And then we moved north into Iraq second. Small group went the second day of the ground war. My platoon went third day of the ground war and went to a place called Cedar, which we got set with setting up initial security for Cedar, and then moved from Cedar to Talil Air Base in southern Iraq, which is about 5 miles west of Al-Nasiriyah, which is famous for where Jessica Lynch was being held prisoner of war. It was also the first main town of resistance in the wars, and we were a day right behind all that resistance when we hit Talil.
Was you one of the first in the Baghdad?
No, we stopped at Talil.
Okay.
Third ID. I forget which Marine and which two Marine units were the ones that were tasked with doing the initial push straight up into Baghdad. What we were tasked with was staying in southern Iraq and cleaning up the messes that they left behind with that initial push. So the closest we got to Baghdad was about 60 miles south of Baghdad, with doing patrols out of Talil.
You said clean up the messes. What do you?
Clean up the messes. What I meant by that was patrolling different cities and stuff.
Still a lot of resistance there.
Trying to find resistance issues and leftover pockets of resistance, confiscating weapon systems, finding cache points. We actually found one of the largest cache points in southern Iraq, which was a 7-bunker system that just in one of the bunkers alone there was over 100,000 rounds of mortars. And that was supposedly an area that had already been cleared, and we had spent the day chasing someone down that had been digging up rounds out of the middle of the desert. Chased them into a village. We cleared the small village, found fighting positions out behind the village that my buddy and I had to clear fighting positions, and continue on clearing the buildings. We walked out back behind the village and saw smokestacks sitting. We were kind of walking along a berm and saw a smokestack sticking out of the ground. And we're told that no, it had been cleared. And we're like, no, we're seeing smokestacks. And being a little pig-headed, my team leader and I kept walking in the direction of the smokestacks, and I said found 7 bunkers. And a lot of munitions, and the means to shoot those munitions off.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. You got rid of everything you found. I mean, you blew it up.
Yeah, EOD came in the days after him and blew everything up in that area. It was a spectacular blow.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Shake the ground quite a ways.
Yeah.
But that was quite a find. I mean, you probably saved many lives by taking that ordnance out of action.
Hope thinks. I hope to think that.
Well, no reason not to. I mean,
yeah, we
had a lot of IEDs, wasn't they?
Yeah, I mean
exactly,
that. I don't think they would have ever been able to regroup enough. At least I'm hoping they've never been able to regroup enough to use it as an occupied force. But yeah, I mean,
you don't know.
Yeah.
What goes on after dark?
Yeah. But in the way of having that stuff sitting around for IED use later on, it would have been crazy to see it go undiscovered.
Said you saw a lot of smokestacks sticking up out of the ground. What did you do? Drop something in them, or?
No,
it's just an indication. Right?
Yeah, it's an indication that
something there.
Something's in the ground, and you actually, when you got closer, you saw that there were stairways. Walking down into these bunkers.
I thought maybe that's the way you cleared them out.
No.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Yeah.
He's been standing on top of it.
Merry Christmas as we're flying backwards.
No.
But
that was a good find.
I think and we had similar guys that were finding different small points and things like that. We had we had guys that we were finding small cache points that guys were coming out in the middle of the desert and taking up AK-47s.
They just burying it in the sand, was it?
Yeah.
Not mapping it.
I'm sure it was mapped some way because they were coming back to it.
Were they? Okay.
But
you don't have reference points out in the desert, do you?
Well, I'm sure for like us there wasn't reference points, but for them, I'm sure knowing the land and everything, I'm sure
a bush, a certain shaped rock, pace off of whatever that might be, and
sure,
camel dung. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever worked for them.
Yeah, whatever worked for them. But yeah, it was. And that lasted for a while. I won't say that took up our whole 10 months that we were there, but
he was constantly on the search.
Yeah, we were constantly on the search when we were up there. So
you was with the National Guard at that time, wasn't you?
Yep, I was with I was 2nd Platoon, 2nd Squad, Charlie Company, 1st 293rd, 76th Brigade.
Yep. National Guard anymore is doing a lot of the work.
The last thing I had read is that we make up 51%
Is that right?
of the nation's defense now.
Yeah.
And
that's a good record.
Yeah.
And still don't get the respect. Personally, but
so many times, so many years, we look at the National Guard and we think this sluggish, guy, weekend warrior, It's definitely not anymore.
Not by us.
No. Agreed. By us veterans, correct.
Yeah,
but
we know when you go out there and go into harm's way, that you know.
Well, and I do remember the days in the National Guard when going out for a weekend drill and stuff like that. It was pretty lax.
Fun time, I'll bet.
I remember the grills and stuff coming out, and the coolers coming out. But as soon back in '96, '97, our mission just totally flipped, and our training totally flipped.
You became serious.
We like we were speaking before the show, but our National Guard unit was switched over to one of 15 enhanced brigades for National Guard around the nation, which we were treated as an extension of the active duty units. So we actually became federally owned. We got the best equipment of what the Army had to offer. Yeah. We got any training we wanted. Our soldiers got all schools that we wanted. So they got air assault school, jump schools. I mean, it was Christmas every day of the year for us, because it was, what school did you want? Where do you want to go to?
Good education, but it was also enhanced training, wasn't it? I mean, you was
we were
spending midnight oil basically.
But our training weekends went from the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, then started going to 4 days a month, because we were leaving on Thursday nights, coming back on Sundays, and our 2 weeks in the summer were then turned into month-long annual trainings and stuff like that.
So your training
our
really
time
stepped
commitment,
up. It stepped up.
And then we were finding ourselves going to JRTC at Fort Polk, Louisiana. We were finding ourselves going down to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for live fire exercises. We were finding our units going up to Camp Jericho up in New York or Vermont for mountain warfare training. So they stepped it up on us too. So the day of just kind of being in the National Guard and sliding by and doing your 20 and just sliding around ended.
Gone. That was gone.
Yeah. How about employment? I mean,
our civilian employers really had to step up, and some did, some didn't. Plain and simple. The ones that did,
I think most of them did, didn't they?
Oh, most of them did. Yeah. 98% of them did. Yeah. Didn't have a problem with it. Understood what was going on. And then especially after 9/11, the civilian population really stepped up and really accepted, what the National Guard was there for, especially when we started pulling Homeland Security detail and stuff like that, and understood that we were going to be in and out of our jobs for Homeland Security's sake and things like that. That other 2% can really understand why they had the issues, and it was only because they were mom and pop shops.
Yeah. I was going to say smaller.
They couldn't survive and hold that spot open for a soldier just because they were 30 employees to begin with. So now when you take away 2 soldiers, it really hurt them. I mean, it was a sad situation, but,
I was really impressed. When I went in, I was a machinist at Airquip over in Van Wert, Ohio. And when I finally got out, I get a letter from every year when you come back, because originally I went in for the first 4 years and planned on coming back to there. All the way up till I came back, and it had sold out to Eaton a few years prior to me coming out. I think it was 2000. I want to say 2002. They were sold out to Eaton, and actually, when I came back home, I got a letter from them again. Do you plan to come back to work for us? My position's still there. I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, some of those people really care. Mm-hmm. They're patriotic, and They look out for
Oh yeah.
the military.
Are any of the National Guard down at the border now? Do you know?
I do not know. I don't know that
I haven't-
situation. I don't.
You don't keep current, huh?
I try, but with some of my PTSD issues and stuff that I have, I get frustrated really easy,
You back off.
and I have to back. And my therapist has told me to back.
I understand.
Sure.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
So
The reason I asked that, I talking to somebody that I've been a couple of years ago, that's where he was headed, but I haven't heard anything since.
they don't talk about it much. So I don't. I mean, I know very little. They talk about it.
Yeah.
I know at one point that there was National Guard units deployed down to Border Patrol.
Yeah. I always thought veterans would be just perfect for that job.
Well, we might
Couldn't
be-
take them down there for a month.
We might be too trigger happy.
From my understanding, when I was down there in '93 for JTF 6, a lot of the actual Border Patrol personnel were veterans. I'm not quite sure how many there were, but I got down there right after the incident with the Marines where they had shot, I believe it was people coming across the border they had shot, and there was a big stir up about that. We were there within a month or so after that happening, so
Well,
they're
well,
doing a
most
complete revamp.
most veterans can adapt to a situation that way, a mission, if you will, pretty easily. You know, they have the mindset and they know what has to be done.
Right.
Whereas, take a person who's not a veteran or so, for non-military, you'd have to train them,
Right.
and the training period would be much longer than it would an ex-military person, I'm sure.
Well, it's the same thing with civil service, police and sheriff.
Yes.
They're finding out again, after World War II, they did hire a lot of service members and stuff like that, but they got away from it for years, and then started getting scared of it and stuff, thinking they'd be trigger happy and something. Well, they found out it was quite the opposite for a while.
Yeah.
And now they're bringing in a lot more veterans nowadays.
Yeah. The way the situation is down there, I think they'd get a lot of volunteers.
Oh heck yeah! There's volunteer groups down there. They got if I remember reading or hearing in the news and stuff like that a couple of years ago, there's a lot of volunteer groups that try to help protect the borders as well.
Yeah.
And it's the local militias and stuff like that.
Well, what else went on in Iraq?
What else?
Hate to keep jumping around, but
Oh no, that's great. It kind of helps my mind a little bit. We honestly, people come up to me and ask me all the time, if we were if what we were doing was good, if what we were,
Sure. Did you have a purpose?
did we have a purpose,
feel
and
good about it.
did the people really want us over there?
yeah.
And and I do believe that the civilian population over there, the Iraqi people,
They understood what was going on, didn't they?
really, at least the ones that we had direct contact with, really did want help. Now, just like anybody that wants help, it was never fast enough. So there's frustrations,
Sure.
you come into my country and you say you want to help, okay, now help us.
Yeah.
Okay, and now help us.
Don't do your job, do my job. Yeah. Yeah.
And so frustrations would escalate and decline as help would come and go from an area and stuff like that. So we had times that we would walk in to a city that we would have to patrol because of issues. That the people were very happy to see us come in. Thought it was great. Would be very friendly. The kids were like the Pied Piper following us around. You'd walk from sector to sector in the city, and the way the cities were set up, they were set up by the religious sects. So,
Okay.
So
What is the conflict?
well, and it was kind of like the same way it would be like gangs.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you would walk through one area of town and a certain group of kids would follow you. And as soon as you get to a street,
They drop off, huh?
they'd drop off and a new group of kids would pick up. But
That'd take a little getting used to because of
well, and
never
they're
sure you're following.
yeah, well, that and you had to get used to they don't believe in personal space.
That's very true. Yeah.
They don't understand boundary of personal space. So they are very much
Walk
in
right
your
up to you,
face.
huh? Yeah.
I mean, and that goes for adults and everything else. So when you're carrying, like I was a grenadier, so I had the grenade launcher on my M4. So I had 27 rounds of high explosive grenades on me.
Yeah.
You know, which I had to keep accounted for at all times.
Come up, pull a pin on you.
Well, those don't have pins on
okay.
you. But if one went missing,
Where to go?
yeah, where'd it go? So, you know, I'm constantly, you know,
Yeah.
Counting.
Make sure you
running the old hand across everything else and everything. But, you know, going through the towns and while we're there, and, you know, we're giving kids candy and things like that. And unfortunately in that town, we noticed that there wasn't very many young and middle-aged males. And so we finally had our interpreter start asking where were the young and middle-aged males. They said they're gone. Well, gone where? They were all told they had to go fight. And
They wasn't given any choice, was they?
no, they weren't. Excuse me. Well, a few minutes later, we were finally shown what happened if you actually resisted. And there was a little girl, and the little girl was blind. And she was blinded by some of Saddam's forces because her dad and her brother refused
To be constricted.
to go fight the war and stuff. So there's certain, you know, there were certain things like that we could see that we were doing some good. But unfortunately, you know, it's a religious war, and we know that
You're not going to change their minds.
that we can't touch. We're never going to touch that. And
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Did you find that you could walk through the town during the day and at night while the other faction would come in? In other words, did they shelter somewhat the opposing?
a lot of towns took care of their own problems, and that's
Okay.
where we came in. Was like that town. Yeah, if I could get a drink of water, that'd be wonderful. Sorry. Thank you. We had a lot of towns that we went to were results of people dying in marketplaces,
Okay.
and so what we would do is we go to those towns to figure out why, and to recover weapons and things like that, and to recover the weapons that were used to kill people in marketplaces and things. Well, what we were finding out more and more were these small towns were the heads of the different quote unquote gangs there. The people that were dying were insurgents that were trying to hide in their towns, and were trying to run countermeasures against U.S. forces out of their towns. They were, no, you're not going to do it out of our town, so they were killing them
Doing you a favor.
and hanging them in the marketplace to show that
Okay.
we're not going to deal with it in our towns.
Sure. So there was some resistance to the enemy there that was in your favor.
Yes, and but then we had to remind them that we were there to take care of those issues, and you couldn't go all Wild West on us, and
Sure.
and that if you had issues,
Yeah. Couldn't take the law into their own hands.
let us know, and we would help with those situations. But and we were finding out more and more that people were actually coming to us and turning over. Like we were finding Turkish militia fighters in southern Iraq that were being escorted back to Turkey.
Okay.
That we were finding quite a few of those. That we were like, hey, we don't need that war going on yet. Just go back to Turkey.
Sure.
So it was just weird how, they wanted to do things themselves, and trying to force them into, let us take care of the war side of this. You just take care of your daily life right now, and we'll give you the means. We'll give you the means to try to start a daily life.
Sure.
But they were quite content on just
Doing their own protecting work.
yeah.
And maybe that's understandable, because they've been at it for so many years, and they don't like people coming in and shaking the bush, so to speak.
Yep.
And
Changing their way of life. Yeah.
I guess their infrastructure was not kept up. I'm talking about
Non-existent.
sewers, water and sewers, electric.
Their sewers were actual ditches dug in the road. Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah.
I remember when we had Commander Plum on. Remember Baghdad Bob?
Oh yeah.
He said when they drove into Baghdad, people were so surprised to see them because they've been told all the time that the forces weren't even close.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Matt's mission, a lot of stuff that I saw was a result of what Commander Plum did.
Yeah.
So a lot of
He was in the first.
a lot of the carnage that we were having to clean up and everything was a lot of third ID. A lot of the third ID boys.
Was it?
Yeah. And it was. I mean, they had a tough mission.
Yeah.
I mean, a really tough mission. Yeah. And I actually give them a lot of praise, and then I really don't like to say this, but I give the Marines, the Jarheads, a lot of praise for what they had to go through coming up through Al-Nusra and Basra in the war.
I respect them and you guys.
Anybody that goes out there and harms way, deserves our respect. Because if they're not there, then I'm there, or you're there.
Yeah.
And they're carrying the load for us.
Gentlemen,
I appreciate that.
we're out of time.
Again?
Already.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dale.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
If you enjoyed the show, we're on every Friday night at 7:30. Remember, freedom is not free, so if you see someone in uniform or see a veteran, just walk up to them, shake their hand, and say thank you for your service. Well, thank you, and good night.